Colin and Val. How we doing?
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Colin, how are you doing out there?
Yeah, great, thanks.
Glad to have you on. There's Don. Don, how are you doing this morning?
Doing great, Jared. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good. How's things?
Things are good. Yeah, slowing down a little, but that's okay.
Okay. Well, just getting time to reset and all that good stuff, right?
Yep.
Great. Well, yeah, I recognize a few of these names on here, a few new ones that I haven't met before, but I'm excited to have all of you guys on. If you guys haven't met me yet or had any chats with me yet, you know that I will probably be picking on you and calling you. I want to make this kind of interactive. I don't want you guys to just have to listen to me talk for 30 minutes because that can be very, very painful. So I will make sure that, every once in a while, if you guys have any questions, type them in the chat box or just unmute yourself and interrupt me. Definitely want to, get all of your guys' questions answered, have a ton of fun with you guys and really see what we can do to, improve some of our practice habits for our players. So that being said, it's 9 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. As we do with RGX, sometimes we're working on the business side of things. But today we're really going to focus on you have players in front of you. And what can we do to get better results for those players? And as we all know as coaches, a big piece to that is getting them to practice. And that's always a hard thing sometimes. So what can we do to get them to practice and practice the things that we would like? So what we kind of probably have all heard. So, let me know if you guys have probably heard some of these from your players, but, why even practice? I come out to golf lessons with you, Don. Why do I have to go practice on top of it? And what about some of these excuses? Let me know if some of these you've heard them from your players, right? Like, why am I doing this? Why can't we master it now? Why can't I just go out and play and already have this skill already mastered? How long is this going to take? When am I going to see the improvement? So I listed out a bunch of them that I've, heard or thought of. Is there any ones on that you guys kind of get really all the time and, you have questions about from your players? What's one of the ones that you hear all the time, Colin?
Yeah, for me, a lot of time people say, "Oh, I don't have time to practice," and which is often the case. They say, "I'll just play all the time," and they don't realize they have to practice to grain it in. Yeah.
Right. So more. I'm guessing that we're probably all in that same boat. That they're more like, hey, when I have the time, I want to play. I don't really have the time to practice. Any other ones? Michael, Don, you guys are just on my screen right here in front of me, so I'm going to pick on you guys first.
Don, if you want to go first, go right ahead.
Yeah. It's the same stuff. I don't have time. My comeback to that generally is, if you can, depending on if it's full swing, something or other that we're working on, I always tell them that it's okay to make swings without the ball there. If you can do it in your yard and you can see where the bottom of your swing is, it's still going to be pretty beneficial. So for somebody that's making some sort of full swing change, I always say just make swings. You don't. Obviously better to have a ball, but in some cases it's not better to have a ball. It could be because you're working on a specific feel, not necessarily worried about the result necessarily at that point. So
yeah, I think we get that quite a bit, right? What if I can't get to the golf course? Well, I can't get out there, so I'm not going to be able to practice. And it's like, well, actually you could do some things even if you can't get to the golf course. So don't let that be the excuse. Michael?
Hey,
Michael wants to go first.
Hi, Jared. I agree with Don totally. I try to give my players motion drills just to build the motion up. And I said, you only have to do it five times a day or a couple of times a day, and it'll make a big difference between then and the next time that you get a chance to go out and practice, instead of going out and practice it for an hour and a half, practice a couple of minutes in the backyard or even on the porch. So there's plenty of things that they can do, but I find that they don't do it. And you make suggestions like, put a club where you're going to walk by it so that every time you walk by, you pick up and practice your grip. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah. So it's one of those things of they go from, that's why I put a long list here of excuses, we'll say. And so they go from one excuse to the next one, right? Oh, I can't get to the golf course. Oh, but I can't do that. Oh, but I don't have time. I'm not sure. It just doesn't feel right. I don't know if I'm doing it the right way, type of thing. Anyone else? Any other ones that maybe we don't see up here that you guys hear all the time that we can make sure to cover and address?
Well, this is Mike Stewart. It's pretty similar to what you guys have up here. I have a lot of kids, and I usually relate it to doing their homework and studying, which results in good test scores. And I tell them if you don't study, if you don't work on your swing, it's going to take longer, and you want to try to make it feel as comfortable and as natural as possible for them. So I usually have them go in the backyard. They can't get to the range, and just hit a tee out of the ground, do something, so they can get muscle memory with their swing.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of what we're going to be chatting about today is ways to get them to get excited about practicing, and go from there. So again, I think where I want to have this conversation go is we all know probably one or two people that are just range rats, right? They love to practice.
Yeah.
And this is not who we're talking about, because really those type of people, I honestly think, play golf just for the reason of figuring out what to practice. Like they got it completely backwards, right? We are dealing with 98% of the people that they play golf and they don't want to practice, right? But we do know that we have a couple range rats that are like, I don't even know why you play. Like you get no enjoyment out of it. All you're doing is just going out there and trying to figure out what the next thing is that you got to work on. Like, oh, I hooked one, so let me go hit 8 buckets of balls to, grinding in a fade or something like that. So again, like I said, I really want to kind of focus on these ways of what can we do to get them out there. And here's some of the keys that I found over the years. We got to make sure that we make it relatable to our players and what they're actually doing. What is this step in the process for where they are right now and where they want to be? So we got to relate it to them, not just the game of golf. The next thing that we're going to dive deep into is setting the challenge point. So I'm sure most of you have heard about that. We'll talk about different ways that you can set these challenge points with your players. It's been proven that that's when players get the most success and get the most out of learning, get the most out of practice, is when you set those different challenge points. So making sure that we're doing that as coaches with all of our players at their varied skill levels, even if it's adults to juniors as well. And then lastly, we're going to make sure that we give them a purposeful practice, and what we mean by purposeful practice instead of it's just practice. Why we really are relating these types of things to our players and assigning them basically this kind of practice routine. So we'll dive right into it. So, we talk especially with our juniors and everybody, SMART goals, right? And so, we've all heard this phrase before, but it has to relate to their goals. So very, very key that that their goals from the beginning. So you've sat down and you talked to them of why they're out there, why they're getting these golf lessons. And then I think the big thing that we sometimes don't do a great job of is we don't kind of walk them through of like painting this picture for them of, hey, if you go do this and you go do it this many times or whatever, then you will be here in our process. And that relates directly to you getting rid of your slice. So you're kind of drawing that little roadmap for them and say, hey, this is where you're at. This is where the very next step is. And in order to get there, this is what I need you to do. Because sometimes we just expect our players to kind of know, hey, I'm doing this for something. And honestly, I've heard it from my players sometimes too, of like, I don't know why Jared makes me do this, but it works. Well, that's the last thing I want to hear as a coach, right? I want to be able to tell them or show them so they understand I'm doing this drill, I'm doing this task, challenge, test, whatever it may be, because it will help me improve in this area, which will then get me to my blank goal. Okay, so I really think that it's one of those things that, you know, sometimes we might miss or glaze over or breeze by too quickly, is making sure that we really paint this nice picture for them of this is a step in the process. Any thoughts on some of this, some ways that you guys have, techniques that you guys have done? Anyone can chime in.
I got, it's Don, Goran.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big game guy. I mean, I like to give people games to play. So, you know, it makes practice a little more fun, especially if you're by yourself. Now, if you're even better, if you have a partner that, or even for me, it's my 12-year-old son who's pretty good stick. We just play games and we compete all the time. And, you know, it goes right into the RGX, you know, the motto to, you know, get people on the golf course, put them under pressure and just see what they do. Do they speed up? Do they slow down? You know, some of those things. So it goes right into that, as you know, as you guys know. So yeah, again, just the more you can play games, the more you can compete with another person, the better, more fun.
Right. And I think what you're saying too, Don, is, again, we have all heard the term SMART goals, right? But how often do we give them the M? They give them something measurable, right? We give them something specific, something that we know that they can do, a drill or whatever. We know that it's relevant to their game, and we know that if they do it over this time, but we never actually give them something to like measure them with pressure on. We give them, hey, do this 500 times, do this a set amount of times, instead of, well, let's test you, let's challenge you. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about in the next one. But it's definitely something that I think we miss sometimes, because we are just doing a quantity of, hey, if you do it this many times, you will be better. Well, we know the 10,000 hour rule, right? You know, if you spend 10,000 hours or something, you're going to master it. How many of you guys have spent 10,000 hours in the golf world? Are any of us just getting done playing on the PGA Tour? Like, did we just play in an event yesterday? No. So that's the thing, is like, well, it's not the same for everything. Any other thoughts on this before we kind of jump to the next one?
I have something. I mean, Don was on point when he was talking about competition. I do every lesson I have, whether it's putting, chipping, or full swings. I even do play 9 holes on the range, where I make them change their clubs accordingly to where we're playing, because they know the golf course where we play, and they love that when we play a simulated 9 holes on the range. So yeah, I like that competition stuff.
Absolutely. I think that we all know how valuable competition is. And again, it's also why, you know, for us at WR Golf, we do 0 private lessons, for that simple fact, is we want them competing with other people, putting pressure on, simulating rounds of golf a little bit more. So we're not just out there watching somebody hit 7 irons on a driving range for no reason. So I love the competition aspect of it, definitely. All right, and we'll get to the next slide here. Click to. So again, challenge point. We all know this. I'm sure you guys have seen this at some point, but the difference between, you know, just being out there practicing compared to, you know, actually having a target, right? And so this optimal challenge that they have here is basically where we're putting a certain amount of pressure, amount of difficulty that allows them to succeed, but it pushes them, right? And I think this is something that it is very challenging for us as coaches to be able to do this with different players, but you can have the same drill or test set up, and you could give them a target score that'll help push them, right? If I have somebody that's a bogey golfer, I might be telling them that I want to set up tees around a hole. So for example, we'll set up 5 tees around a hole, and I'm going to tell them I want them to make 7 out of 10, right? And they have to stay there until they make 7 out of 10. Well, if I have somebody that's a scratch golfer, I'm going to have that same drill, that same test for them, but they have to make 10 out of 10. So it's ways to push them in a challenge that is going to get them to feel that pressure, right? I really love with these, what I've put here, drills versus tests. What I think that we do too often, well, not we, I think that what players do too often is they go out there and they spend time on a drill, right? Especially again, if we just say putting. So you have all these different putting training aids that you have, the swing arc and the putting boards and the templates and all that stuff. And they'll go there and they'll put that down and they'll hit hundreds of putts with the putting template, which again, I'm not saying is a bad thing. And then what they'll do is they'll pick up the putting template, pick up their golf balls, get in their car and think they got better. But we don't know, right? Because we haven't, like what Don was saying, we haven't challenged them. We haven't put them under pressure in a competition and say, this is what I want you to do with one golf ball. So again, setting these target scores for them, either out of 10. Sometimes what I've been really liking to do lately has been in a row and giving them how many in a row they can make. I think 7 out of 10 gives them a little bit of a safety net. So I do something like that with our higher handicaps. But anyone that's bogey golf or below, I'll set them, again, if we just stick with putting, 3-foot circle. Hey, you're going to make 5 in a row. Hey, you're going to make 7 in a row. Hey, scratch golfer, college players, you guys are making 10 in a row. What you could also do is vary up the length, vary up the amount of break, put some on there where they can achieve it. But if you sit there and tell a bogey golfer that they've got to make 10 in a row on a 3-footer with some break, well, all they're going to do is they're never going to succeed. So now they've just sat there and just hit 150 putts, will never be able to achieve that. And they're just going to see that the goal is so far out there that they're actually not learning. So that's kind of what we mean by this challenge point, is being able to set them targets that they can achieve and say, go do this, and then I will give you the next step. But this is, again, how we can relate back to what their games are. Of this person struggles with short putting. Here is something that I want you to go do. This is exactly how you set it up. Go achieve that score, come back next week, and I can't wait to hear how much fun you had because you were able to do it. Or, hey, it took me 6 times. All right, well, great. You just spent that however long, 30 minutes, and you proved to yourself that you can do it and pat yourself on the back. Great, now let's get to work. Next week, it's 8 in a row, 9 in a row, whatever it may be. Thoughts? Let's see somebody I haven't heard from. Jeff, I see your video on, so guess what? You're up. What are some things that you think about with challenge points? How are you doing it? How are you kind of having your players succeed in these areas?
Hey, great to be on board. I'm a new guy on the block.
Great to have you.
Yeah, it's challenging to get people to stick with the specific drill or the exercise. You'll lay out a visual alignment, or you'll use a tool or a device, and you'll say, look, let's do 5 to 10 reps without a golf ball. Let's just work on, say the movement or the pattern, whatever that case may be. And then let's put it to a challenge. Let's see how many balls you can pitch to the 25-yard marker and try to keep score. It's a great way. I find that people lose interest a lot with the specific drill. They don't like the whole sort of, whether it's a visual thing on the ground like alignment sticks or it's a tool or device, they just feel so uncomfortable. And that's my biggest challenge, is that people are uncomfortable being uncomfortable. And, you know, you got to walk them down the path to say, hey, this is new, this is different. We as humans don't like change, but, you know, you got to get over it and get on with it.
Yeah.
So just trying to sort of, you know, keep patting them on the back and leading them down and saying, you know, inch by inch is a cinch and yard by yard is hard.
Yeah.
And mile by mile takes a while, but it's a process. But you know, these are all such great concepts. It's just getting people to follow through with them.
Right. Right. And what you said there is, you know, they get uncomfortable. And that's why people, again, I believe they don't practice, right? Is because I could read the dictionary, right? I can read the dictionary and I'll know more words. Okay, but why? Like, what's that going to do to help me?
Right.
Like, how is that going to help me in this next one? So what I would say, honestly, for what you said there, Jeff, is I would flip it just a little bit. And what I love to do is I love to lead with tests and say, how many out of 5 did you make in this? Land in the, and it said 25-yard pitch shot. Okay, great, 2. All right, so now what we're going to do is now we're going to work on this drill, and you're going to, you know, show them this, and then you're going to have them test again. And so then if they get a higher score, it's like, okay, so you see why we do the drill is this. And be like, I don't care. I don't care if a person comes, a NorCal guy out here, Spencer Levine. I don't know if you guys have seen yet or not, but he's basically putting like Happy Gilmore, split grip, whatever. I don't care how you do it if you achieve a high score. And be like, you know what? I challenge my players sometimes. I'm like, if you can go make 10 in a row in this, I'm not going to tell you we need to change your alignment or your ball position or any bit of technique. It's like, you're good. It's when you don't achieve that score. So I think sometimes maybe flipping it just a little bit and proving to them how bad they really are at it, then they kind of are like, okay, I'm open. I'm open to this idea that Jeff is about to give me. Okay, all right, I did the drill. All right, Jeff, you proved it to me. I'm better after I did this drill. Like that's kind of sometimes it's that aha moment for the player instead of like, I got to do this drill. Okay. Well, they don't see the relationship. I mean, honestly, that's why, you know, even with some of our ladies that are brand new, I'll start them out and be like, all right, first lesson. Okay, I put tees around a hole at 3 feet. Let's see how many you can make. And they're like, what do you mean? How do we do that? I'm like, well, you put a golf ball on the ground and you putt it. Let's see. All right. And we'll see 0, 1, 2, whatever. And then we'll be like, all right, cool. Now what we're going to do is we're going to run you through a couple of these training aids, putting sword, putting art, blah, blah, blah. And now let's go back over there and try it again. And they're like, they went from 1 to 4. And they're like, oh my God. Like, now I know why we do those things. Instead of do those things first to then do that. I think sometimes it steals that aha moment away. Does that kind of what are your thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, no, I like that. That makes total sense.
And I think sometimes it'll help them get on board. And that's where, again, we talk about these challenge points and you can make it real easy, right? You can make it super easy for some of those beginners, challenge the other ones really hard, and you give them drills based off of what they tested. And that's kind of, again, I think the big point with these challenge points here. And then again, I mean, here's the last thing that we're really going to kind of chat about today, practicing with a purpose, not just practicing to practice. Okay. That's what those range rats will do. They just want to go out there and hit balls. I know it. I see it on the driving range. I see the same people almost every single day that I drive into the golf course. I don't know if most of those people even play golf. They just practice. Okay. But everyone else, limited amount of time. Can't get to the golf course. Okay, well, this is exactly what I want you to do. This is how often I want you to do it. And here's how we can test you in that area to see your improvement. So making it very, very clear to them, making sure that no matter what they're doing, even a drill, that there is some type of pressure on there. I forget who it was. Michael, I believe, had said juniors, right? And so with juniors, there's easy ways to get them to practice. It's either reward or punishment. Okay. With some of our, you know, lower level beginners, juniors, yeah, give them some gold golf balls. We literally spray paint golf balls gold, and they love it. They think, oh, I went out there and practiced. I did this drill. Great, you get a gold golf ball. Sleeves of golf balls. College level players, we might do things that are more kind of on the punishment side of things, almost like, hey, do this or you owe me a 1 minute plank, right? Because those players, we have very, very specific, clear goals for them, which are at a high level, as in, I want to play college level golf. Well, then you can't skip a week of practice because you got busy, right? So these are things that we will make sure that they're doing. And it's based off of the things that they really, really need in order to achieve that goal, all the way back at the beginning of what we talked about. It's not just to perform a function. It's, I have to do this. Steve has to do this drill with this test because it will help his chipping score be lower, which will then in turn help him get it up and down more often because he's missing 9 greens around, right? Which will relate to a certain score. And what we really want to make sure that we're doing with this purposeful practice is you get it very, very simple, very clear. Do not give them 5 things to go work on. Give them one thing that they can go master with a clear outcome of how they master it. So again, just to stick with, we can even go to what Jeff said. This is how many golf balls you have to land in from 25 yards away in a circle this big. Go do it. You do not get to do anything else until you have achieved that score. So if I tell you have to hit 5 in a row inside a 10-foot radius of that circle, you have, if that takes you 15 times, great. Takes 15 times. If you do it on the first try, cool. Awesome. Go do whatever the hell you want, right? Like, congratulations. You have gotten better this week, and you can go hit drivers and slice drivers into wherever. I don't care. So it's like, give them one specific thing to work on. They can see it. I also like to have that incentive of like, you do this, you can go do whatever you want after that. I don't care if you do it on your first try. It takes you 8 minutes. Great. Move on. So before we kind of wrap up and everything, thoughts on practicing with the purpose, different ways that you guys have done it. Who else can I pick on here? Who I haven't? Kat. My wife's name's Kat, by the way. So I see Kat Bruner on here. So I'm going to have to pick on you, Kat.
Howdy, howdy.
What are some of your thoughts?
No, I love the specifics, giving them what they try to achieve. I've recently been, I have a 8-week-long class for my advanced juniors. It's a group class, and I actually have a leaderboard for them throughout the time. And then after each week, I assign them a homework. Now, they collect points throughout, the session with me, but the homework is actually worth a lot of points. So for the person that does it, and again, it's very specific to where they have a chart that they have to, fill in, like how many putts they make out of whatnot. And then they fill that chart. So each drill that they have, about 2 or 3 drills for the homework, nothing too big. But they have to send it back to me, filled out. And then I keep a track again, who was the best in that category. So I'm just trying to, teach them that having the specific measurable practice, just like y'all said, with purpose, it's so important. And that way they can print it out again and redo it, try to beat it next time. So all of the points I keep hearing are some great ideas. Just the little kids, they need to learn how to practice with purpose. Usually they have no idea, and we need to help them figure out, how to practice, what to practice, how often, and how to measure it, how to compare with others and stuff. So I feel like we're kind of on the same page with everything, which is fun.
Absolutely, Kat. And I think a couple big things that you said there is, this is something that that I literally tell my players from the very beginning is one of the things that I'm going to teach you is how to practice and how to practice the right way. And so that is a big part. It's one of the basically the three things that I'm going to teach you is how to play the real game of golf. Okay. How to shoot lower scores and how to practice. Like basically
Absolutely.
showing them exactly this is what I mean by practicing. It's not what you thought in your head practice was, which was driving range and maybe putt, or whatever it may be, doing a bunch of swing technique stuff. So teaching them how to practice. I love having, like you said, with the juniors, having them do challenges, having to make sure that we're holding them accountable. As some of you know, within RGX, we are your accountability coach. I think that's what we also have to be with our players, is that you're going to hold them accountable to doing these things. I love having a competition where, again, it's that. I would also say, Kat, have them compete against themselves. See who could show the most improvement, right? Don't always just have it all based on who is the best player in that group, right? Because then it might have those players that aren't as good. They know that they're never going to win it. So then it kind of has them check out. See who can show the most improvement from week 1 to week 5 to week 8,
For sure.
deal.
Yeah.
So
That's a
that way,
great
again, it's not just relating it to others. It's
Right.
what can I do to, hey, I went from 3 to 8. Well, the guy that said 8 can't get any better than that. He can't get 5 better out of 10, right? So it's
That's
like
right.
I have a chance to do this. So it's pushing even those players as well.
Mhm. Thank you.
Love it. Love it. Well, again, just to kind of wrap up here, make it easy for them. Make it easy for them to see why you're telling them to practice these things, why you're telling them to get to the golf course, why it will help them shoot lower scores. All of those things, instead of my coach told me to practice, I know I need to practice. Again, I know I need to read the dictionary to learn more words. No idea why that would help me, right? So make sure it's relatable to that player and their specific goal, and hit that. And I think you're going to see them buy in a little bit more. We got to make sure that we're always setting targets for them to achieve when pressure is on. So just like Don said, this comes from challenges. You can't just make them do a bunch of drills. 5 swings to make 5 swings is just that. See what they can do to get better. Even if it is a swing change, have them make a swing and see how far it's changed in the last week. Like relate it from one video to the next. I want you to do this drill, and then I want you to make a swing, and let's see if you've come over the top less, right? Have we got that club face a little bit more square? Like you have to challenge them in each and every one of these areas, and you can't do that sometimes with all of the visual training aids and everything is the only way they practice. You have to remove all of that stuff and say, I want you to hit 5 golf balls. Here's the target. See how many out of 5 you make in. Let's see what your score is. Great. You got 3. All right. Well, our goal is in the next week or 2, we're going to get to 4, and this is how we're going to get there. So again, that's where I really kind of say purposeful practice is very specific and clear things that they're going to work on. And it's not about quantity, it's about quality. So not just, hey, go spend 10,000 hours, because I spent more than 10,000 hours still waiting for that call from Live Golf to, pay me a few $100 million to come play for them, but I'm not there yet. So it's not just time spent, or else, again, we all would be on tour right now. So again, I thank all of you guys for hopping on with us. If you want to learn more about this, again, sometimes we're working on business stuff. Today was really, hey, here's our coaching. How can our players get better that are right in front of us? And then also, how can they get better when they aren't in front of us? So thank you guys for hopping on. Any last minute questions, comments, thoughts before we ring off? I know we're a couple minutes over. Good. Okay. Awesome. Well, again, make it a great week. If at any time you guys have any questions, reach out. You can scan that little QR code down there. You can reach out to me. I look forward to having many more chats with you. Oh, and Chris just commented, is this available to watch again? Yep. So once this recording gets whatever, you can reach out to right here, rgxcoach.com/explore. they'll get back to you and you'll be able to kind of watch this recording for anyone that maybe jumped on late or anything like that. So have a great one, guys.